Well, in some cases, microfood plots are less than an acre. They're only so many hundreds of feet wide by hundreds of feet long. And a lot of times those microfood plots, guys plant them near their prime tree stand location. That's like nearby really good buck bedding area and good watering hole and all that stuff. You want to have all the ingredients around you that's necessary to hold them bucks. As Bill Wink would say, I'm building a buck trap, the ultimate buck trap. That's a quote from Bill Wink. I've been watching his videos and stuff on do-it-yourself deer habitat improvement. And Bill Wink will do this similar thing. He'll go into an area up onto the ridges and knolls and hills where he hunts, and Bill Wink will selective cut. He'll cut all dead trees that he doesn't want. He'll leave all the good prime trees, the trees that are producing mast, like acorns and things like that. He'll leave them, and he'll open up the canopy to allow more sunlight in and to help to germinate any seed that's been laying dormant there that will help regenerate growth, bring in new regenerating growth, new succulent vegetation, and so that new trees can grow to make it the habitat just that much more pleasing to the deer. And in essence, he's creating a buck trap, the ultimate buck trap. And in some cases, too, Bill Wink will have microfood plots planted in these openings. You could do any number of things, really, to improve your deer habitat. But you want to have water nearby and actually already known prime buck bedding areas, which I have behind me here. There's a hillside ridge right behind me, and I'm always jumping bucks out of there. And I'm always finding buck beds in the tall grasses and weeds right where they have the upper hand. They're always bedding where they can see with 360 degrees around them, and they can smell all the scents and odors around them really good. So good prime buck bedding requires pretty much good prime buck bedding areas are going to allow that buck to have the upper hand. They're going to bed on points, where ridges come to a point. They're going to bed on high rises where they can see all the way around them, where they can smell everything around them, see and hear and smell everything around them. And you want to have that type of geographical feature around your microfood plot or where you're doing your habitat improvement. And you want to have water source nearby, thick travel cover going from their bedding area to those little microfood plots, places where they feel secure to travel in the daylight. Good. You want to have lots of transitional zones. Deer are creatures of edge. They seem to always travel edges of fields, edges of thick pine stands that border maybe like a old clear cut or something, where it's like thick vegetation next to old growth pine stand where it's more open woods. They'll follow that edge. They'll follow a swamp edge. And I'm sure you already know this when in doing your scouting and your preseason scouting and going out there scouting for those buck hangouts and stuff. I'm sure you found all your deer trails bordering swamp edges, bordering field edges, bordering where the different stand of forest comes up and butts up to an old clear cut that's real thick, grown up with thick vegetation. Those deer trails are going to tail those edges. They're known as creatures of edge. So you want to have your microfood plots, right along those travel corridors, along those funnels and pinch points and near those bottlenecks and all that sort of thing. So I've got prime deer buck bedding area out here to my left, prime buck bedding area to my right, behind me, in front of me. There's buck bedding areas all around me here. I've got a stream running through right just less than 100 yards that way. I always hang a stand right behind me, right over here, looking over this microfood plot. There's already clover here, but as you see, I've got to seed this ground here that's already been tilled and stirred up. Right now is the time to frost seed, throw that seed out. The seed's going to work its way into the cracks and crevices, loose soil. As the ground freezes and thaws and the rains come on, there's a rain event tomorrow. It's going to help germinate that seed very quickly. And here it is, the end of March. It's going to be April, like next week. And the seed's going to take off quick, I feel, and start germinating right away. And probably in a week to 2 weeks' time, I'm going to see a lot of new growth here. A lot of succulent, herbaceous growth from the grasses and clovers coming up. It's going to what looks brown and dead here behind me is going to be green in a couple weeks from now after I seed here today. Oh, yeah, I better get after it. I think I see a buck rub back there. But yes, in this location here around me, I'm always finding lots of buck rubs. Buck scrapes show up over there on that ridge, across the swamp on that ridge line over there. I've found bucks. There's been buck scrapes showing up every season back here behind me, and buck rubs all around. There's some big bucks I chase here in this hunting area that live. They call this area their home. They live right here. I've been chasing one all this past season that always gave me the slip. He's shown up on all the cameras I have out here, and he's been showing up on camera in a lot of my stand locations when I wasn't there, unfortunately. But I ended up tagging out on a doe in this area. Just the weather was staying warm. The weather wasn't conducive to bucks getting up on the hooves and moving. There was hardly any deer activity through all of October. And I opted to tag out the last week of October of bow season here in Maine on a nice big doe. I had already shot in a nice buck and expanded archery anyway with my bow, so I did get a nice buck, a nice doe with my bow. My son got his first ever deer at 10 years old this year. So we got 3 deer total in the freezer for my family this past deer season. And also I tagged out on spring turkey too. And also got a nice bear. So ample meat, plenty of meat for the family and friends. So no problem there. But the big buck, there was 2 big bucks that I was hoping for any one of them. They kept giving me the slip. And they were both them bucks were using this micro food plot behind me, feeding on the clover. And here are those bucks now. So those 2 to 3 bucks I was hoping to harvest, that I was chasing all archery season here in Maine, they were using this food plot behind me and the ones up that way, and they were going in front of this stand location and that stand location and 2 other. There was like 3 different tree stand locations of mine that the bucks were periodically traveling by, but they were giving me the slip. Every time I was on stand, they wouldn't show up. And every time I got a chance to hunt, it seemed to be too warm to really get the deer moving in daylight. The temperature was not conducive for good deer movement in October, at least all the times I was able to hunt. On those cold snaps, when the cold fronts would come and the deer were real active, I wasn't able to hunt. Unfortunately, it just played out that way for me this past deer season. But on those cold snaps, on those cold fronts that came through those bucks, they'd show up here in this food plot behind me and be feeding on clover. So when chasing after your trophy buck this season, you want to hunt the weather just as much as you're hunting them deer. Follow the weather, the forecast, and get out there every chance you can on those cold fronts. When that front moves through after a heat wave leaves and the cold front comes in, you want to get right out there on stand and hunt all day on that cold day, on that cold front. Be on stand all day. And so you can pretty much, you're almost guaranteed to see deer, to have some of your target bucks come by and lay your eyes on those target bucks on thduring archery season. Yeah. So don't waste your time on those really warm days. You're going to hardly see any deer. You may see a doe or 2 and some yearlings right at the last 20 minutes. But for the most part, you're not going to see hardly any deer movement on those real hot days. They'll show up on camera come midnight, 11 o'clock midnight. They might be out there as the temperature drops 20 degrees overnight. But you want to really follow your weather, your forecasts, and get out there every cold front that you can on those cold snaps and sit all day on those food plots or on those edges of the swamps, wherever you have your stand location. You're guaranteed to see deer on those cold days. So I just so happened that this past deer season for me, I was hunting on all the warm days, it seemed like. When the cold fronts would come, I wasn't able to hunt, but the deer were showing up on camera, on those trail cameras in my stand locations. It just played out that way for me this past season. So I better get after it here. I better start planting some seed here. Start sowing the seed. I'm just seeding light. I'm getting clover later on. As you probably saw, this says contractor seed mix. This is just grass. I'm not putting this on thick. I'm going to buy straight 100% clover at a later time I'm going to do that in April. Get the clover. Clover will take off a lot. Will grow in here much better on this clay-like soil. This might not take very well. This was a cheap bag of grass seed. It's only like $60 for 50 pounds. But this is just like a base layer in a way. I want the roots to take off here, help hold the soil from eroding and washing away. This is kind of like the appetizer, if you will. For a better lack of words, it's kind of the appetizer for the food plot. Just a quick little. The clover is going to take off a lot better. Clover does very well in acidic areas, in loamy, clay, rocky like soils. This grass I don't think is going to take off very well right here. But you never know. We're just going to throw on a thin coat. I just want it to look green in here, not brown and dead. So, whoa, I don't see any turkey tracks. Looking for turkey tracks. There's always turkey sign in here this time. Oh, the seed's going out there pretty far. Not real windy, so I can't walk too far. I'm sinking. I don't want to make ruts in here. I'm going to stay on the edge and just throw the seed out there. If this grass does take off and begin rooting, making a root system to help hold that soil together, make it less soft, and then I'll be less apt to sink. I can't wait to get the clover back in here. Every year I have to reseed this because of the logging going on way in a couple miles in, and they always tear this up and ruin my nice little clover food plot. There's still a section of the food plot over there that's got clover growing still. My trail camera's over there still right now. The deer have been coming through here all winter long, and some bobcats and coyotes. Just not going to get too fussy with this seed. I will with the clover. I want to put the clover on thick. That looks like an old turkey track right there. I think it is. Yeah, I think there's some hen tracks right here. Yeah, I think so. Excuse me. So my stand location is right here. I put a tree stand up right there, overlooking this food plot. My trail camera is right there. And I've had, just this past deer season, guys, I've had a couple does. A doe and her yearling come in here real close, right onto the stand, like 15 yards. Yeah, so I have my stand location right here. My camera right there, my cellular trail camera still there. Put the stand there. Just this past deer hunting season, I've had a doe and her yearling come by real close. Came right under my stand location right here. That was opening day, actually, of Maine's regular archery season.